Hello and welcome to another video on this channel. Today I want to talk about something different, other than the P-Pico effects. As you see in the picture, it still plays a role, but only on the side. Today I'm going to talk about something more on the analog side, to be more precise, fully on the analog side. Over the course of the last 3 months I've been building an analog tape delay which is based on compact cassettes. So what is an analog tape delay? It's actually a tape loop, piece of tape, which rotates actually this direction, rotates around, and one of these, there are 3 tape heads. One erases the content which has been on the tape, and then one writes content on the tape, and the other one reads it back right away, thus creating an echoing sound. So let's talk about the signal chain. First of all, the microphone I'm talking through, it actually goes through the tape delay, which is switch off at the moment. But before that, it goes into the P-Pico effects, which applies some vocal processing, some EQ, and a little bit of compression just to make it easier to get the signal onto the tape. And then it goes into the tape delay, the input here, and the output goes straight into a mixing desk, which also doubles as an audio interface. And yeah, so let's just talk briefly about the knobs. On the bottom left side, we have the standard controls for a delay, which is the input level, and then the feedback amount. So the higher this is, the more the longer the echo tail is, and of course a mix where you can mix the direct sound, which you hear right now, with the delayed one. And on the right side, we have 3 knobs which are more specific to recording signal onto a tape. You have a recording level and then a so-called bias level. I'm gonna briefly explain what this is in a short moment. And then we have a record gain and also a knob which disables or enables the erase head. So when no erasure happens, then actually the tape loop behaves a little bit like a lo-fi sampler. So before switching on the tape delay and give some audio examples, I quickly want to talk about the bias signal. So when I learned about how tape recording and reading back works, I quickly found out that reading back is actually the easiest part on a tape. You just have to consider this playback head as a microphone and connect a fairly high gain amplifier to it with some low passing, because it's actually an inductive load, this read head, and then you can read a signal from a tape back. It was not the most difficult part. I tried this out with some tapes I still had with some music recorded on it, and I had a lot of fun listening back to some old tape loops of Nirvana records from my youth. Then recording was much more difficult because of this so-called bias signal. Bias signal is actually a high frequency signal which sort of gives an initial momentum to the little magnets, or how, I don't really know how to explain this in detail. There are some good resources on the internet, but this is necessary, and so you need to build a circuit that creates a more or less pure sine wave at the frequency range of about 30 to 60 kilohertz, which has, at least for me, wasn't the easiest thing to do, because some inductors didn't really work. So I just have to say that this tape delay is just powered of 9 volts, and using 9 volts is a little bit on the lower side to have one of these oscillators really going. But after a while I had recording sorted out, and the last thing I needed to take care of was erasing the previously recorded signal, and this has to there I put the most effort in regarding research. And so what I learned from when reading or browsing through the internet was that the erase signal had to be a lot more powerful than the record bias signal. I've seen some schematics which showed circuits that spit out like an AC signal of about around 100 volts, and I thought, okay, I cannot achieve this with a 9 volt power supply. And what I also found out, I've disassembled quite a few old cassette desk, really cheap ones, and they didn't have this fancy array circuits built in, but just actually a magnet built into a magnet hooked up to a piece of plastic. So, and actually I found out that this is also a way of erasing a signal. But the problem with this is that there's always a constant magnetization which builds up, which in turn makes recording much more difficult. And also when running, looping the tape over and over again, also the read head gets magnetized, and so the quality decays pretty quickly over the course of a single tape loop, and on the longer term when just regarding the heads. And so what I needed to do is to build a specific circuit that puts that implies erase signal strong enough to really erase the tape, but is also easily doable on a 9 volt with a 9 volt power supply. I came up with a very simple square wave oscillator which just then drives a transistor which switches off and on, and the crucial part is just to have a shunt diode in order to not to have voltage spikes. And this then concludes the entire tape delay. And now I've talked for long enough. Let's switch it on and listen to how it sounds. What I do now is I switch on the motor. Of course the tape needs to rotate. What you hear right away is the motor noise. I couldn't really get rid of completely, but that's just how it is. And then I just turn up the mix knob, and what you hear is of course my voice just delayed once. And one of the first things, maybe just turn it down a little bit more, is that the mechanical setup is also quite critical. It's just one of the part of the know-how built up I did. So if the tape doesn't really run tightly along these recording heads, then it sounds really dull. And I wasn't aware of this for a long time. I tried to experiment using a simpler setup, and this didn't work well. So let's move it up. And what you hear is kind of a scratching noise. Also, this is probably because these heads are on the cheaper side and they're not really polished, and so probably the tape scratches somewhere and creates this noise. Anyway, just let's turn up the feedback. And what you hear is of course at some point tape saturation, and this effect I think is really cool. Here and even more. Try to increase the record level, and all of a sudden you just get pure chaos. So, okay, just the tape loop is gone. So let's cut the video and make a new one, and then let's continue. Okay, on with some more demos. I want to show you two things which were important learnings for me. The first was that some parts of the mechanical setups are really crucial when it comes to the impact it has on the sound. The second effect I can show you right now, because I cannot make all the manipulations now once the device has been built or is more or less finished. But a second effect is the tension of the magnetic type has a huge effect on the sound level and sound quality. Now it's really loose. When I switch on the motor, it still works, but you don't hear anything. Although mix is like halfway up, level is full up. When I add tension, you see, of course you have this, when I hold it with my hand, of course the tension always goes back and forth, so you just have this modulation effect. And when now it's a little bit, tension is too high, so maybe just lower it a little bit. At some point it's set up nicely, then you should hear a good echo sound like before. And yes, I just mixed in the second effect. By the way, The second effect I wanted to show you is the effect of the bias level. There's still some wobbling there, but this is part of the effect. So maybe just switch it off just for explaining the effect. Now I have the bias level which is almost at full volume. That is actually what is needed to record properly. What I do now is I reduce this bias level, and then you can hear the difference it has on the sound. So let's turn up mix. Hello. 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 You hear? 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. And now I increase. Now I increase record level. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 2. Okay, so now it's set up pretty nicely. The last thing I want to show you is when I switch off the erase head, what the effect is. First, let's be quiet for one full loop. Okay, now just record some more, even more. Okay, now just record 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 more. So, okay, if you watched till here, then congratulations. So let's end this video with a more musical and more entertaining part. I'm gonna play some harmonica through the tape delay, and in the end I just turned the feedback all the way up to have some nice tape chaos. Just try my best.